Welcome back. Welcome to the Premier Mindset by Premier Performance LLC. I'm your host, Trent Mahler, LCSW, licensed clinical therapist and performance coach, and this is episode 49. This is an episode for high performers, leaders, high achieving individuals who are always striving to be better. Today, we're tackling a topic that's deceptively simple, but massively impactful: self-awareness. We've been told that self-awareness is essential. Leaders, athletes, executives, entrepreneurs, everyone talks about it like it's a superpower. It's supposed to make you more effective, more empathetic, more in control. It's framed as a universal key to success. But here's what nobody tells you: self-awareness can also make you worse. Yes, worse. And it's not because self-awareness itself is inherently bad. It's because most people are applying it in the wrong way or without the proper framework. When misapplied, it can lead to indecision, anxiety, overthinking, and even sabotage of your own performance. Let's start with a scenario. Imagine a high-performing executive who has just finished a big quarterly presentation. From the outside, they crushed it. Colleagues are impressed, investors are nodding, the board is satisfied. On paper, it's a win. But internally, something entirely different is happening. They're replaying every slide, every word, every gesture. Was that tone too aggressive? Did I appear arrogant? Did I miss a subtle cue? And this internal dialogue doesn't stop. It follows them into meetings, into dinner with their family, even into sleep. That's the trap. When self-awareness isn't structured or bounded, it becomes rumination. It's less about insight and more about obsessive self-monitoring. Self-awareness in its ideal form is a performance-enhancing tool. But left unchecked, it becomes a performance inhibitor. The irony is that the very people who are most invested in growth, high performers, top executives, elite athletes, are the ones most at risk. That's why we're talking about it today. Why? Because your self-image and identity are tied to results as high performers, top executives, and elite athletes. And awareness without strategy triggers a feedback loop of self-criticism. Here's the first principle I want you to take away. Self-awareness is not inherently corrective. It is a diagnostic tool. And like any tool, if you don't use it properly, it can hurt more than it helps. Let's talk about mechanics. When someone becomes hyper-aware of their behavior, internal processes, or perceived flaws, three things tend to happen. One is overregulation. You start controlling everything internally. Every thought, every emotion, every impulse. This sounds disciplined, but it's actually energy draining. Your nervous system stays in a heightened state, which over time reduces creativity, intuition, and flow. Second, it causes analysis paralysis. We've talked about this a couple times. Every decision becomes loaded because you're evaluating not just the external impact, but every micro aspect of how you're being perceived or how you might perform. Indecision grows and action stalls. Third, we have identity conflict. Your self-image and your actual behavior start to diverge. You may see yourself as competent, decisive, or confident, but internal awareness constantly tells you you're falling short. This creates tension, guilt, and sometimes even imposter feelings, which is something we talked about in our imposter episode. Now, let me give you a short story on business to illustrate this. And of course, confidentiality is always in effect. We don't reveal anything private. Names are changed, information is changed, but I want to show you guys how these things work in action. So I'll call this person David. David was the CEO of a mid-sized tech company. Brilliant, strategic, and laser-focused. He was exactly the type of leader people aspire to be. But he was also incredibly self-aware, maybe too aware. Every conversation, every decision, every email became a minefield in his head. Was that message too harsh? Did I offend somebody? Did I misread the board? The problem wasn't that David was self-aware. It was that he never operationalized that awareness. It had no structure, no container. That constant self-scrutiny led to procrastination on decisions, second-guessing his own instincts, and even alienating his team because his over-analysis made him appear hesitant. Performance wasn't improving, it was stagnating. So how do you prevent self-awareness from turning toxic? Here are three practical interventions I start with in my work with high performers. The first is a structured reflection window. Awareness needs boundaries. Instead of letting self assessment spill into every moment, create dedicated reflection periods. For example, set aside 20 to 30 minutes at the end of the day to process decisions, interactions, and emotions. During this window, you can list 2 to 3 things you did well, you can identify 1 to 2 areas where you can improve, and you can focus on actions, not judgment. So ask, what can I change moving forward? Not why am I failing? When we get into the judgments, it tends to accelerate emotions, making us feel worse, and it tends to get us more stuck. So don't focus on the judgment, focus on the behavior, focus on the action. By containing awareness to a set time, you prevent it from leaking into every micro moment, which preserves cognitive bandwidth and reduces stress. The second technique is physical anchoring techniques. Your nervous system is in constant dialogue with your mind. If self-awareness creates tension, you need a physiological reset. Here is a simple intervention. You want to take a 3 to 5 minute break, anywhere, wherever you want, and you want to start by inhaling for 4 counts, holding for 2 counts, exhaling for 6 counts, and then holding for 2 counts. And then you just repeat that process over and over again for those whole 3 to 5 minutes. While you're doing that, you want to notice the tension in your shoulders, jaw, or back, and consciously release it, feeling it get looser, more open, feeling your body open up to the world. And then you want to anchor yourself with 1 to 2 external cues, such as the floor beneath your feet, the air on your skin, your butt on the chair, whatever it might be. You just want to anchor yourself back into the moment through external things you're feeling outside of your body. This technique helps separate awareness from anxious rumination, shifting your nervous system from overengagement to regulated attention. The third technique is reframe awareness as operational data. If we can create these reframes in our mind, it helps us not beat ourselves up and get into these loops, and it helps us be productive with what the information we are gathering is. Instead of self-awareness being moral or existential, like am I good enough, we got to treat it as neutral data. Ask what's true, what can I adjust, remove judgment and maintain curiosity, and stay performance focused. For David, when we shifted his perspective from I am failing to here's what the data shows about my decisions, he started taking action again. When we just get stuck on the I am failing, we beat ourselves up, we tend to isolate, we try and get away from certain things. We don't get better, we tend to get worse. In this situation with David, awareness became a tool, not a tormentor. Now let's expand this a little bit. Self-awareness can also go sideways when it interacts with team perception and leadership dynamics. High performers often assume everyone else is observing them as critically as they observe themselves. That assumption is usually false, but it drives overcompensation. Think about it in your own life. Think of how many times you've been worried about what other people are going to think or what they're going to say, and then they just tend to say nothing. Like there's really no comment. Like they're just fine. This happens all the time. We get constantly worried about what other people are going to think and them seeing some issue in us and judging us in some way. But in reality, we are all caught up thinking about ourselves most of the time. We're worried about what everyone else is thinking about us. We're not just walking around judging people all the time. Sometimes that happens, but it doesn't happen as often as we think. Leaders can micromanage, second guess, or over explain, and these are all behaviors that stem from unchecked self-awareness. Teams can sense this tension, which ironically reduces trust and influence and makes things worse. So here's a mini intervention for that. After a meeting or interaction, write down your interpretation of how you were perceived. Then ask, what's the objective data? Compare the two. Often your internal story is far harsher than reality is, and sometimes we have to realign our own belief and our own narrative in our mind with the reality of what's going on around us. This exercise helps to break the feedback loop of self-criticism, and it keeps your self-awareness functional and prevents unnecessary behavioral distortions. Now let's talk about values alignment. Hyper self-awareness often amplifies internal conflict because your actions, outcomes, and self-image aren't aligned with your core values. Many high performers drift into overanalysis because their behaviors unconsciously contradict their priorities, creating tension that masquerades as I'm not good enough. To recap the actionable interventions to take advantage of that we just covered before we move on, the first one is to choose one value that matters most this week. You want decisiveness, integrity, courage, whatever you want, just something that you want to focus on. What value do you want to make a priority? Then we want to anchor daily reflections to that value. Where did I act in alignment with this? Where did I deviate? So we want to go along with that value, have that theme kind of lead us in our actions and how we're looking at things. And then focus on alignment, not perfection. This turns self-awareness into a compass instead of a hammer. We don't have to be perfect, and we don't need to beat ourselves up when we do make mistakes, because you will. We need to just get back on track and just correct it. This isn't about beating ourselves up. It's about how do we do better. And if you sit there and self-criticize, you're getting further away from just doing better, honestly. So stop. You're wasting your time. We think it helps us, but it really doesn't. We love to justify it by saying we're teaching ourselves a lesson. But you already have the lesson, which is why you're holding yourself accountable to it anyways. Just move forward now. Go with that. Self-awareness is a tool, not a virtue in itself. Without structure, reflection boundaries, physical regulation, and value alignment, it can lead to overthinking, paralysis, and internal conflict, especially for high achievers. Now I'll be going deeper into how self-awareness interacts with decision-making under pressure, team perception, and personal relationships. I'll introduce additional interventions, explore the impact of over-awareness on leadership, and start weaving in the second story, this one with an athlete, that highlights performance consequences and recovery strategies. By the end of this episode, you'll have a full framework for using self-awareness to enhance performance, not undermine it, with clear exercises and interventions that can be applied immediately. Time to examine what happens when self-awareness meets pressure, the moments that really test high performers. Misapplied awareness can erode leadership, decision-making, and team dynamics. Let's start with a story from the world of sports. I'll call this person Chet, and of course confidentiality still applied. Chet is a top quarterback. He had incredible talent and discipline, but he was hyper aware of every micro movement. His drop back, his throwing motion, his footwork, even the way teammates perceived his leadership in huddle. During practice, the awareness was fine. It helped him refine mechanics. It was actually a good thing. But during high pressure games, the pressure skyrocketed, and it became something that caused pressure and issues, not something that helped him. That stadium was loud, the defense was aggressive, and every decision mattered. Chet's self-monitoring intensified. Did I hold the ball too long? Did my eyes telegraph the pass? Did the coach think I'm panicking? The result? Hesitation. Mistiming. Even though he physically had the skills, his overactive self-awareness slowed his reaction time, disrupted his rhythm, and ultimately impacted the team's performance. What should have been an asset became a liability. This is the phenomenon I want to focus on now. Awareness under pressure amplifies cognitive load. The more you monitor yourself in real time, especially when stakes are high, the more mental energy you divert from execution, creativity, and intuition. So how do high performers prevent self-awareness from undermining performance in pressure moments? Here are 4 interventions you can implement immediately with this aspect of things. The first one, this is something I do with teams, is pre-performance mental anchoring. Before high-stakes situations, create a mental anchor that signals to your nervous system, this is execution time, not evaluation time. Evaluation is important, but when we need to execute, we need to be in execution mode. We cannot be evaluating while we're executing. We have to just do the work, and then we can look at the work later. That's what film review is for, especially with sports. So here's how you do it. First, you want to choose a short phrase, word, or physical cue, like tapping your hand or pressing your fingers together, and you want to associate it with a state of calm focus. So you can kind of meditate with it. You can kind of give yourself the mindset of what calm focus looks like for you and try and encapsulate it, whatever works. But you just want to kind of create that connection with whatever that cue is with calm focus. And you want to repeat it before or during high pressure situations to remind your brain to execute, not critique. So that calm focus helps us get aligned to what we need to do. It's kind of setting yourself up. This is why rituals and routines can be so helpful for performers, whether it's athletically, business wise, or otherwise, because we have to set ourselves up to get into the right mindset to do what we need to do. We are operating at high levels. That's not an easy thing to do. We have to turn it on. So having something you can use to kind of be like a light switch to turn that calm focus on and get into that situation, that will help us execute. And that's going to keep us away from that critiquing, which is getting us stuck. Chet implemented this by tapping his chest once before each snap, signaling that it was time to trust his training. Suddenly, he was less caught in microanalysis and more in rhythm with the game, and it really helped right away. When I brought it up to him at first, he kind of brushed it off. He didn't think it was going to impact him the way that it actually did because it seemed so simple. But sometimes really simple things work very powerfully in our body, and we can't write them off just because they seem simple. Everyone wants the complex, high level thinking type skills and techniques, but honestly, they're really complicated and hard to use because you have to be, in the right mindset to actually use them. If the pressure's on and you're sitting on edge, you can't use something complex. We have to use something simple. So while the complex stuff is fun and cool, and we'll get into those things, the simple things are more powerful because those are the ones we actually need to lean on when we're struggling. The second thing you can do is action first awareness. Instead of letting awareness freeze you, use it post action, not mid action. Awareness should inform, not dominate, especially under pressure. During execution, you want to focus only on the immediate cues necessary for the task. If it's not necessary to what you are doing, don't worry about it right now. You can worry about it later. Afterward, review performance using structured reflection windows like we talked about earlier. And ask yourself what worked, what can I adjust next time? Avoid judgment-based thoughts like I shouldn't have done that. Those things don't help. Focus on the data. You want to collect data to help yourself improve. Keep in mind with those structured reflection windows, they have to be timed. We can't let ourselves just sit and ruminate on these things all day long. That's not going to help us. This flips awareness from a critique into a performance enhancer. For high performers, timing matters. Awareness has to come at the right time or it becomes paralysis. So don't get caught up in the awareness. Let's go with it and use it at the right time. The third thing you can do is called micro decision calibration. High performers often operate in a world of constant decisions, both small and large. Hyper-awareness can make minor choices feel monumental. So the intervention to prevent overload goes like this. Label decisions by impact. High, medium, or low. The reason we are labeling these decisions by impact is it helps us see what is most important and what is going to make the biggest impact versus things that maybe I don't need to pay too much attention to. High impact decisions get full conscious evaluation. We have to sit and fully think about it and make a good decision that's going to help us move forward. Because it's high impact, it's going to have a big impact on whatever we're doing. Medium impact decisions get a decision window. They get 5 to 10 minutes for you to think about it. So give yourself some time, let yourself sit on it, chew over the ideas, the thoughts, the options, but eventually we have to make that call, and we got to do it within 5 to 10 minutes. You can't ruminate on it for too long. It's not big enough to spend on it longer than that. If it is big enough, then it does fall into the high impact side, which is why it gets a full conscious evaluation. If it falls on the other side, where it's more low impact, these decisions are executed quickly, almost reflexively. You kind of just like trust your gut and go with it, because whatever happens is going to be kind of a small impact on the situation, so it's not going to collapse things or cause a spiral to occur. Sometimes we just got to get past it and get on to the next step. Sometimes our decision-making process, doing it reflexively, is totally fine and it works great. So be aware of which goes where and labeling which decisions are high impact versus low impact and anything in between. And it can be hard because this is kind of subjective, but we got to be honest with it so we can make sure to reserve the energy we need for the bigger, more important things that are going to move the needle and not things that are just going to take up time. This helps us create a mental triage system so your self-awareness energy is spent wisely. Chet started using this during games. Split-second throws were instinctual, while play adjustments at the line got conscious attention. Efficiency improved dramatically for him. The fourth thing you can do is called a team reality check. One of the most overlooked consequences of misapplied self-awareness is its effect on the team. Leaders who over-monitor themselves often overcompensate. They over-explain their decisions, they micromanage others, or just avoid delegation in general, not trusting anyone else to do the work. Teams tend to notice this tension, the uncertainty, and the hesitation, and it usually decreases trust and influence. It can keep more people on edge, making it harder to kind of come together and bond as a team. So the practical intervention involves a few different steps. After key interactions, you want to get objective feedback from one trusted team member. So keep in mind the team in general and think of who's going to tell you it how it is, like be real with you of what they're saying and what they're experiencing. Someone who's not going to tell you what you want to hear, but honestly give you objective feedback of how it's coming across. Then you want to ask that trusted team member, how did the interaction feel and did your message land clearly? This helps you get more feedback, more data to compare with your own internal narrative and get a more accurate picture of, did it land the way I wanted it to? Am I being hard on myself? Am I missing these cues that there is a problem here that I'm not seeing, or something else? This aligns self-perception with external reality. Awareness without external calibration is just noise, but with calibration, it becomes actionable intelligence. Let's take a step back and look at why these interventions work. Self-awareness becomes toxic when it generates excessive internal critique, when it diverts attention from immediate performance, when it operates without boundaries or feedback. By anchoring attention, sequencing reflection, triaging decisions, and checking reality, you turn awareness into a tool instead of a trap. Now let's integrate value-based interventions at the pressure point. High performers often struggle because intense self-monitoring clashes with core priorities like excellence, leadership, decisiveness, or courage. When these collide, tension skyrockets. To really lock it in, there are a couple of actionable steps you can take. You want to identify your core value for the situation. An example could be decisiveness during a pitch or courage during a critical conversation. So identify the core value you want to inhabit during the situation. Next, you want to anchor your actions to this value. So ask yourself, does this choice align with the value I prioritized? If it doesn't, let's not do it. Let's anchor to the value. That's the focus here. And thirdly, you want to detach from the outcome. Focus on executing aligned actions, not controlling the results. The outcome will be what the outcome is. Don't worry about the outcome. Focus on the ingredients, focus on the process, and just let the outcome be what it is. We can reflect on that later. If you get caught up trying to control the outcome, you're going to give yourself more anxiety, you're going to cause more hesitation, you're going to get yourself stuck. Chet used decisiveness as his core value during games. Even when a play didn't go perfectly, his focus on acting aligned with his value prevented self-doubt from spiraling. His performance improved and teammates noticed the confidence boost. These things really do work. We just have to put them into action. Let's pause to discuss a subtle but powerful aspect of self-awareness. Emotional monitoring versus cognitive monitoring. Most high performers over-index on cognitive self-awareness. Am I making the right call? Am I strategic enough? Am I smart enough? That's what creates overthinking. Emotional awareness, noticing your stress, tension, or excitement, is often neglected. This is where the intervention comes in of emotional tagging. During high-pressure tasks, pause for 2 to 3 seconds and identify your emotional state. Label it, frustrated, anxious, excited, confident, whatever it is, and then observe it without judgment, such as, I notice I'm anxious, instead of, I'm failing because I'm anxious. We want to just observe the feelings without judging it in some way or talking about how it's getting in your way. And then from there, you want to use physical or mental techniques to regulate intensity. This is some of the stuff we covered in our distress tolerance episode. It could be breath work, it could be micro movement, or focus anchors like we talked about earlier. It's just using an intervention to help us get going. So this one, the emotional tagging, is more helpful for identifying and not judging than it is actually changing certain things. Because once we understand what we're feeling and what's going on, then we can do some things with it. If we have no idea what we're feeling, it's really hard. Remember, recognition is the first step. This keeps emotional arousal in check without blunting performance, and it prevents awareness from turning into self-criticism. Next, let's address decision making under uncertainty, which is where self awareness often sabotages results. High performers frequently second guess themselves because they're aware of potential mistakes and how others perceive them. Awareness magnifies uncertainty, which slows decision making and reduces execution quality. Here's a 3-step framework I use with my clients at Premier Performance. First, we gather minimal, viable information. Avoid over-researching or seeking perfection. Next, we want to commit to an actionable step and execute within a defined time frame, even if uncertainty exists. So we're kind of holding ourselves to movement, like we're going to do something. We don't know how it's going to go, but we're going to take an actionable step within a certain amount of time. And then we want to have some post-action reflection. We want to evaluate what worked, what didn't, and what's actionable next so we can keep going. This process shifts awareness from a real-time inhibitor to a post-action improvement engine. Before we keep moving, let's add one final story to illustrate the cumulative impact of mismanaged self-awareness in leadership. I worked with a COO of a growing startup. I'll call this person Rachel. Of course, confidentiality still applies. Rachel was incredibly self-aware, constantly evaluating every conversation with her team. She wanted to be an exceptional leader, but she spent so much energy in internal monitoring that she slowed execution, over-explained initiatives, and micromanaged projects. Her team became frustrated, productivity dipped, and she felt ineffective despite her skills. We applied all of the interventions we've discussed, like structured reflection windows to stop rumination, anchoring and pre-action cues to reduce real-time critique, value alignment to prioritize actions, team feedback calibration to align perception with reality. Within weeks, Rachel's decision-making speed increased, team trust improved, and she regained the confidence she lost in overanalyzing herself. Self-awareness went from being a liability to her superpower, and she started performing at a much higher level, not just for herself, but for her team. By the end of this episode, you'll not only understand the risks of hyper-awareness, but also have a practical, repeatable system for turning it into consistent advantage. Now let's go further. We'll look at how self-awareness shapes long-term leadership, resilience, relationships, and sustainable performance. And I'll provide a complete step-by-step framework you can implement daily, weekly, and monthly to leverage awareness as a premium performance tool. First, let's talk about self-awareness beyond execution. So far, we focused on performance moments, like games, projects, decisions under pressure. But self-awareness is far more powerful when it impacts relationships, team culture, and long-term leadership effectiveness. High performers often neglect this. They master execution but underestimate how self-monitoring shapes the perception and morale of those around them. Awareness without outward calibration creates one of two scenarios. One, you get the overly self-conscious leaders. They obsess over impressions, they micromanage, they hesitate in delegating, teams sense the tension and hesitate themselves. There's just this kind of main theme of like freezing. Or secondly, it can lead to disconnected leaders. They act skillfully but fail to notice how their behavior impacts others' confidence, motivation, and engagement. Relational check-ins are huge. It can be as simple as just scheduling a weekly one-on-one or small team feedback sessions to hear how things are going. In these situations, you can ask focused questions like what's working and what could I do differently to support you? And I know these questions are hard to ask because naturally it opens the door to critique or feedback or even pushback. But whatever information you gather, you can improve with. That's data. We can't be afraid of hearing what people are thinking because they're thinking it either way. So we can work on it and get things better, or we can try and ignore it and pretend it's not happening, but it doesn't mean it's not. We can also track patterns, not individual criticisms. This helps to implement change incrementally instead of reacting to the emotions that come up from the individual criticisms. This transforms self awareness from a solo performance metric into a team enhancing tool, reinforcing trust, clarity, and influence. And it's also showing the team that we can talk about these things and this is wanted. We're creating a system where it's okay to be vulnerable and to give feedback to each other, which they will start doing with each other more and more often if you can do it from the top down. You can also build mental resilience through self awareness. Resilience is more than grit, it's the ability to stay effective when stakes are high, stress is real, and outcomes are uncertain. Hyper awareness often erodes resilience by feeling doubt and second guessing. Another strategy is controlled exposure to pressure with structured reflection. So here's a step by step approach. You want to first simulate stress in a low risk environment. Example is a manager runs a challenging scenario in a team meeting rather than waiting for an actual crisis to hit. So you're kind of simulating that stress in a way that it's low risk. Things can't really go wrong even if you mess up. This is why simulations are so important and why it's done in so many different areas. We then want to anchor awareness to values, not fear. So ask, what's the actions aligned with my value right now? That value-based action work is very helpful to keep us on pace with what we need to be doing. After that, you then want to debrief post-simulation. So identify what heightened self-monitoring and adjust for next time. So be aware of what occurred that led to me to be more self-awareness in a way that it wasn't helpful. Maybe it's a critique, maybe it's something going wrong, maybe it's a certain type of crisis that shows up, maybe it's something else. But be aware of the patterns that trigger things in you. That's a lot of the work we're doing. Again, recognition is the first step. Over time, this method rewires your nervous system. High pressure triggers no longer hijack execution because you've trained awareness to operate with clarity under arousal. That's why we have to create these situations when the pressure is on, so we can train that into our system and we're able to do it. Now, some daily self awareness practices you can use as high performers. Daily practices are what separates high performers who plateau from those who sustain growth. So here's a practical routine you can follow. In the morning, just takes 10 to 15 minutes. There's a couple things you want to do. First is the values alignment. We keep talking about values, it's going to keep coming up because it's very important. It helps guide us. With the values alignment you do in the morning, you want to identify your top 3 values to guide you through the day. It could be courage, it could be decisiveness, clarity, honesty, whatever you want. Whatever sounds good for the day and what you're doing. If you're giving a presentation you're really nervous about, one of those values might make sense to be courage. Maybe it's something else. So find the values that align with what you're doing to help guide you through that day, not your life, that one day. Next, you want to do an emotional scan. So go back to that emotional tagging activity, and you want to tag your emotions objectively. I notice excitement and tension. Just notice things, scan through the emotions in the body. What are you feeling? And then thirdly, we have a performance anchor. So select a cue. It could be a phrase, a breath, or a micro movement for real-time execution focus. What cue is going to lock you in to do what you got to do? What is going to hit the mark for you? Whatever works. Just say it to yourself, do it for yourself, whatever you need, and then get into it and execute. So that's the morning. Just take 10 to 15 minutes, nothing crazy. Then during the day, we can kind of reflect in different ways. So we can use micro reflection windows after key actions. You can ask, did my behavior align with my values? Kind of checking in with what we did in the morning. Did I communicate clearly? Did I get my point across? We have to check in and see, are these things working? And then apply decision triage to avoid mental overload. Let's do the high, medium, and low impact decisions. We got to label which is which and then go through that process. If it's high impact, we give ourselves the time to fully evaluate what to do. If it's medium, we give ourselves 5 to 10 minutes to think about it, then we just make a decision. If it's low impact, we almost do it reflexively, where we just kind of trust our gut and just go from there. And then tag emotions in real time, particularly stress, frustration, or fatigue, and use predefined regulation strategies like breath, pausing, or just movement. Whatever you need, whatever works best for you. That's why we're trying so many different things. So you got a good toolbox that works best tailored to your situation. And And the last part of the day is the evening. We want to do another 10 to 15 minute sit down with ourselves. During this time, you can do structured reflection. You can review actions without judgment. You can note what aligned with values and what adjustments are needed. This helps us be more productive. This helps us grow. There's always something we can improve. We don't want to beat ourselves up about what's not perfect. We just want to look at what can I improve as I keep moving. After that, we want to do some gratitude and strength recognition. Acknowledge 3 wins or learnings from the day to reinforce positive awareness cycles. Again, awareness isn't something to beat us up. It's a diagnostic tool to help us get better. So don't use it to beat you up. Let's use it to build you up. So acknowledge those wins, give yourself credit for something, pat yourself on the back, and let yourself keep moving. This daily structure ensures self-awareness is actionable, structured, and growth-focused, and not just a source of rumination. We also have weekly and monthly frameworks we can use to scale awareness from personal execution to leadership influence. We can use weekly practices. These are 30 to 60 minutes, so they're a little longer, but we do them weekly, so it's okay. It's not as much time daily. There's 3 things we can do. The first one is team feedback synthesis. We want to review patterns from relational check-ins, identify behaviors to amplify or adjust. So just kind of reviewing the feedback you have been getting. What patterns are you noticing? What things do you need to do more of? What things do you need to change? What do you need to adjust? The feedback is great, but if we don't do anything with the feedback, it doesn't really matter. So be aware of your own patterns and let's try and make things better. Let's optimize. The second thing you can do weekly is high impact decision reviews. Examine 1 or 2 decisions you've struggled with and evaluate the process and the outcomes. This helps us the next time a high impact decision comes up so you can better think it through and review it in a way that's going to help you make the best decision possible. So evaluate your process, evaluate your outcomes. Let's see how you did. Let's see if it worked out. Let's see if there's something we need to keep in mind next time. And thirdly, the thing you can do for weekly practices is skill focus. You can pick a single aspect of performance to enhance, like delegation, communication, clarity, focus under stress, whatever you want. Just pick something you want to get better at. We have to be mindful of things we want to improve. We can't just keep doing our thing, the same thing, every day. We have to just find ways to improve and build. There's an idea out there that you're either getting better or getting worse every day. You can't stay the same. It doesn't exist. Things either dull or they sharpen. Let's continue to sharpen things. So be aware of just picking a skill and focusing on it, just a single one. Now getting into the monthly side of things. These practices monthly can be 60 to 90 minutes. So again, a little longer, but again, it's monthly instead of weekly, so we do it a little less often. There's again 3 things we can do. The first one is a comprehensive reflection. So compare behaviors and outcomes over the whole month. Ask yourself, am I moving closer to aligned performance and leadership goals, or am I moving away from it? So looking at kind of the whole picture, is what am I doing working, or is it not? Am I moving towards who I want to be and the way I want to live my life, or am I actually moving away from it? The second thing you can do is adjust anchors and cues. So update pre-action and in-action strategies based on what worked and what didn't. So we go back into those anchors and cues, see what we need to do. We're just kind of tweaking it a little bit. If it worked, great, keep going. If it didn't, we got to update it and do something else. Maybe we got to try and use something else. And then thirdly, for the monthly practices, we can do leadership pulse. You want to check team trust and moral metrics. We can do this by using surveys or observations or just getting direct feedback. But you want to check in with the team, whoever you are leading, to see how you are doing. The only way to do that is to check in. We have to know how things are going. So maybe you have a system or a strategy already in mind that you're using. Maybe you have nothing. You got to build something from scratch. But you just want to have some way to get that data from the team to understand how you are doing as a leader. Over time, these practices all compound. Awareness evolves from a reactive tool into a proactive engine for performance, leadership, and personal growth. Now let's go over some advanced interventions. One of them is awareness in conflict and negotiation. High performers frequently stumble not in skill execution, but in difficult conversations. Awareness is critical here, but the risk is over monitoring internal critique and suppressing authenticity. So keep these strategies in mind. First being emotional tagging pre-conversation. Recognize your emotional state before engaging, such as I'm anxious but committed to clarity. We have to tag these emotions beforehand so we know what we're dealing with. Do not ignore your emotions. It will show up in different ways to cause problems for you. So we have to deal with them. We have to be aware of what we're bringing into these situations. Next, we got to anchor to our value. Decide the guiding principle for the interaction. Clarity, fairness, decisiveness, or influence, or something else. Just what is that principle you're going to use to lean on when you're uncertain of what to do next? That will help be your compass. It's not going to solve it all for you. It's not going to give you all the answers, but it will help you deal with it. Next is active listening with structured awareness. Focus on understanding before reacting. This is one of the biggest issues people get into is they get caught up reacting instead of responding. We have to take our time and understand what's happening and choose the best response. Don't just react to what you're feeling. To do this, we got to label key observations mentally without judgment because, again, judgment accelerates emotions. It's going to make it more likely for you to react instead of respond. So label the key observations mentally, keep the judgment out of it. After that is post-conversation reflection. We want to evaluate what aligned with values and what you can improve for next time because there will always be something we can make better. If you use that to beat yourself up, you will tear yourself down every step of the way. This isn't about tearing us down, it's about building us up and learning what we can improve. So just notice what can get better, make a note to work on it, or let me know if you're not even sure how to work on it, and we can get that work going together here at Premier Performance, and we will improve in the future so that you handle things even better and you're proud of what you're doing and how you're handling whatever situation shows up in front of you. And all of this is going to lead to so much more success. This all ensures awareness supports clarity, composure, and influence rather than defensiveness or overanalysis. We also have to integrate awareness with performance coaching. At Premier Performance, we use awareness as a cornerstone to maximize execution, leadership, and personal growth all simultaneously. For example, with athletes, we use micro-reflection windows to improve mechanics without disrupting flow. We anchor values like courage, decisiveness to performance cues. With executives, it's a little different, but not really. We implement relational calibration, decision triage, and emotional tagging to maintain team trust while driving results. We also have individuals pursuing mastery in general, just a, everyday high performer who's just striving for greatness in what they're doing. We use daily and weekly practices that prevent awareness from devolving into rumination and instead amplify skill retention, confidence, and resilience. Because again, we want to use these things to build us up, not tear us down. Awareness is a tool just like all these other things we're talking about. And just like any tool on the planet, you can use it to build you up or you can use it to ruin your life. It's up to you. And sometimes we don't even realize what we're doing, which is where it helps to work with someone else. Awareness becomes the differentiator between average high performers and those who consistently operate at elite levels across sport, business, or personal pursuits. So to complete our episode, we're going to jump into our next topic that we're going to cover for kind of the rest of it. We'll jump into a couple other things to finish things up. But we want to talk about mastering awareness for impact. So let's revisit Chet, the quarterback, and Rachel, the COO, one final time. Chet learned to anchor his focus, trust instincts in real time, and review performance post-play. His execution under pressure improved, and his leadership in the huddle strengthened. Rachel structured her feedback loops, anchored actions to values, and adjusted decision-making processes. Her team trust and productivity soared. Both transitioned self-awareness from a potential liability into a tangible advantage, not by becoming less aware, but by channeling awareness strategically. Here's the takeaway for you. Awareness alone is neutral. Unstructured, judgmental, or real-time self-monitoring under pressure is often a liability. It's going to make things worse. It's going to set you up for failure. Structured, values-aligned, and feedback-informed awareness is a premium performance tool, one that improves decision-making, execution, leadership, resilience, and relationships. So implement the daily, weekly, and monthly frameworks into your life today. Anchor awareness and values. Use post-action reflection. Monitor impact on others. This is how high performers sustain elite results without burnout or self-doubt getting in the way. When awareness becomes a tool instead of a trap, your performance, leadership, and influence expand exponentially. That's the core of the premier mindset. Most importantly, let's talk about how transforming awareness into impact, legacy, and mastery actually works. You've made it this far. If you've been following along, you now have a clear understanding of how self-awareness can both be a risk and a tool, how structured awareness can elevate performance, and how daily, weekly, and monthly frameworks allow high performance to sustain growth without burnout. But now we step into the final edge, the place where self-awareness stops being just a tool for personal execution and becomes the lever for impact, legacy, and mastery. This is where the premier mindset comes alive in its fullest form. You want to use awareness as your legacy tool. Think about this. Most people measure their impact by what they produce or what others see them accomplish. They think success is a scoreboard, wins, promotions, accolades. But high performers, the truly elite, measure success differently. They measure it by the ripples of influence they leave behind. Not the things they create, not the wins they have, the influence they leave on whatever they're doing. Self-awareness is the tool that shapes those ripples. Every action you take, every word you speak, every decision you make has a reverberating effect on people all around you. And the more intentional your awareness, the greater your ability to control the direction and force of those ripples. Start thinking about every interaction as a micro legacy moment. Before any meeting, ask yourself, how do I want people to feel leaving this interaction? Before any decision, ask yourself, what ripple will this choice create beyond me? Post-interaction reflection, you can ask, did my actions create the intended ripple? If not, how do I adjust for next time? This isn't about micromanaging perception. That would lead you to a problem. It's about mastering influence intentionally, using awareness as the lever to do it. There is power in silence and internal calibration too. High performers rarely appreciate the power of stillness. In the age of constant input, hyperanalysis, and unending feedback, silence becomes a superpower. This is where awareness meets inner calibration, the ability to pause, notice, and act from a grounded center rather than a reactive mind. There are practical steps we can take to make this a little easier, such as micro silence anchors. Before high stakes conversations or decision points, pause for 15 to 30 seconds. During this time, close your eyes if possible. If you're driving right now, please do not. Notice your breathing, label any internal chatter, and center on your values or objective. Focus that mind on what you're trying to get done or what you want guiding you. Use this pause to decide the action you want to take. Rather than reacting from impulse or habit, you react through a response of what do I want to do here, not just letting your emotions and the feelings get the best of you and start just controlling your actions. This skill transforms pressure from a threat into a performance enhancer. Awareness without pause is chaos. Awareness with pause is mastery. There is an intersection of awareness and courage. Here's the truth few people will tell you. Self-awareness exposes fear and vulnerability like nothing else. The moment you truly see your habits, limitations, blind spots, or emotional triggers, you feel so small. You feel exposed. Courage is what bridges the gap between seeing and acting. And not just any courage, strategic courage. The kind that allows you to lean into discomfort, to confront truths, to make bold decisions, and to move forward when others freeze. We can do this and get some help with this through our intervention of courage mapping. We want to identify one area where awareness has revealed fear or hesitation. You want to ask, what is the smallest, most decisive action I can take right now to lean into this fear? And here's the hard part. We then have to take that action immediately. And if we can't do it immediately, it has to happen within 24 hours. If you push it off, you will not do it. If you get past that 24-hour mark, it becomes incredibly hard to do. You have to lean into that fear and just take that leap of faith and see how it goes. If you sit on it and think about it, it's not going to help you. You're going to talk yourself out of it. And after you do that, you want to reflect on the outcome, not to judge it. If you judge it, you're going to make it worse, but to learn and recalibrate. Did it go great? Did it go bad? Is there something we can do better next time? We have to put ourselves out there, and this is how this helps us keep going. Awareness is a key to radical adaptability as well. Life is unpredictable, especially as high performers. Teams, markets, competitions, and personal challenges change constantly. All of life changes constantly. It's all around us all the time. High performers are often lauded for their skill, their grit, their consistency. But the truly exceptional high performers are defined by how they adapt under pressure. Adaptation isn't reactive. It isn't scrambling. It's awareness-driven recalibration. It's noticing the truth of the situation, understanding your internal state, and choosing an optimal response that aligns with your values and goals. There are some frameworks you can lean on. You can observe to see what's happening internally and externally without judgment. It's always great with just awareness, is just noticing. We can anchor, connect your response to a clear principle or desired outcome, as we talked about a couple times today. You can act on it, move decisively using micro reflection if necessary to see how it's going as you're going, but you want to take action, get things moving. And then you want to review immediately after the action. Don't let it wait, don't let it sit, don't let the emotions fade. Evaluate what worked and what didn't, and how to improve next time. Don't judge yourself, don't get caught up on what you did wrong. Just look at the data. This cycle, when repeated consistently, builds an unshakable internal compass that allows you to thrive when chaos hits. On top of that, we can master influence without losing authenticity, as this is a big challenge for a lot of people because people feel they have to choose between impact or influence and being their genuine, authentic selves. And I'm telling you guys, you don't have to. You can do both. Here's where awareness elevates not just performance, but impact. Influence isn't persuasion. Influence is the alignment between what you believe, how you act, and how others experience that alignment. Without self-awareness, influence is accidental. People are affected by you, yeah, but inconsistently. With structured awareness, you can speak with clarity under pressure, lead by example without over-controlling, detect when your actions inspire or derail others, and correct course silently and intentionally when needed. There's a practical tip you can keep involved with this, which is influence checkpoints. After any interactions where you intended to lead, pause, and assess, ask, did my actions reflect the principles I want to represent? Did they inspire clarity, confidence, and action? Adjust behavior in small increments based on those reflections. Influence is a compounding effect. It's not a switch. It's not just something to turn on. It's all the little things stacked up, turning into something incredible, just like the ripples we're talking about. And with that, awareness is also a bridge between potential and mastery. You've heard it before. You've probably seen it before. Talent is not enough. Work ethic is not enough. Intelligence is not enough. What separates extraordinary performers from the rest is how they manage the gap between what they're capable of and what they actually execute consistently. That gap is where self-awareness lives, and it's where your highest leverage points exist. Every blind spot, every emotional trigger, every unchecked habit is a lever waiting for awareness to pull into alignment. So we want to identify top 3 blind spots each month. See what they are. It might be hard at first, especially if you haven't been practicing with that awareness, because they're blind spots. They're things that are hard to see. But take your time and try to identify them. Recognition is the first step. If you can't see them, we can't do anything about them. Then we want to map the impact of each blind spot on performance, relationships, and growth. Just understand the impact of these blind spots in your life. What is it doing to you? Then from there, we want to implement micro interventions daily to adjust that behavior slowly but consistently. That way we can track progress and continue to recalibrate almost monthly, if not weekly, if we'd prefer, to get ourselves in the lane we want to be in and to get those blind spots seen and taken care of. This is not surface level improvement, and none of our work is ever going to be surface level improvement. It's actually like a pet peeve of mine when people just talk about the surface level motivation type stuff that sounds good and it's cool, but there's nothing really to take away from it. I'm going to give you guys so many tools and strategies that it's almost annoying that you lose track of them. And that's just what I do, because that's what our goal is here, is to give you guys so many things that you have plenty of options to choose from. This is precision mastery, the method by which high performers turn potential into sustained elite level impact. You don't become elite, you don't become a high performer by accident. You use these tools and strategies, and sometimes we accidentally fall into some of them and we luck ourselves there. But it usually isn't sustained. So we have to make these things sustainable by creating that impact and keeping it going consistently through these tools. There is a role of pain and challenge in awareness too that we should talk about. No high performer has ever achieved mastery without discomfort. It doesn't exist. Awareness exposes pain. It shows where you failed, where you're vulnerable, and where you must act. But here's the paradox. Pain is the currency of growth. Awareness transforms pain into intelligence. Every failure becomes data. Every moment of doubt becomes insight. Every emotional trigger becomes a signal for recalibration. And with that, we can turn pain into performance through the pain to performance conversion. So here's a way to practice yourself. Identify a recent failure or challenge and break it down into specific, observable components. What was within my control? What wasn't? Design one actionable change based on that insight, and then implement it and reflect. You want to see if it's working, because if it's not working, there's no point in continuing to do it. We got to use pain to fuel performance, not to create paralysis. Next, let's go into the quiet power of presence. As we reach the close of this episode, one of the deepest truths remain. Awareness is not just about action, it's about presence. Presence is the capacity to be fully in the moment, fully aware of internal and external landscapes, and fully aligned with values and purpose. Presence is quiet power. You don't need to announce it, you don't need to perform for validation. Presence is felt, not measured. To do this, we have a 3-minute daily presence exercise. You want to sit quietly, just observing your breathing. Just stay focused there. Then you want to label 3 sensations or emotions without judgment that you notice too. Anchor to your values or a central intention. Expand your awareness outward. Notice surroundings, relationships, and energy in the room. The reason we do this is we start off sitting quietly observing our breathing to reset. From that reset, we slowly grow the awareness in a way that's helpful. We notice our emotions, our sensations. We anchor to values, intentions to make sure we stay on the course we want to be on. And then we slowly expand our awareness to be aware of other things like our environment, relationships, people, energy, tension, and everything else. Presence compounds. Awareness without presence is mechanical. Awareness with presence is magnetic, resilient, and transformational. You may have met somebody with presence and felt this before, where you felt just drawn to them. You felt like they just knew what they were doing. You didn't really know why. Sometimes it's just presence. So here's the final truth. The journey of high performance, self-awareness, and impact is never complete. We could have this conversation when we're 90. There will always be more things to talk about and to work on. It's iterative, it's evolving, and it's relentless, but it's also profoundly rewarding. High performers who cultivate structured awareness, strategic courage, emotional clarity, and relational insight do more than just execute. They transform their world. Their teams perform better, their influence grows, and their personal growth compounds in ways most people will never experience. Imagine this. You've mastered your awareness, aligned with actions and values, acted courageously under pressure, and influenced people with clarity and presence. You look back at your life, and it's not just full of achievements, it's full of ripples, of impact, of legacy that you consciously chose to create. And in that moment, when the noise fades, when the distractions are gone, when accolades and recognition matter less than the quiet of your own reflection, you realize you've become the person you were capable of being. So I leave you with this. Awareness is not passive. It is not about watching yourself flounder or judging yourself silently. It is the spark that lights the engine of mastery, courage, and impact. If you take one thing from this episode, let it be this. Your mind is a tool, your emotions are data, and your presence is your power. And when you combine them, nothing can stop you from transforming potential into reality, struggle into skill, and awareness into legacy. Take a breath now. Feel it. Let it sink in. Everything you've learned here, every intervention, every framework, every insight is useless unless you act on it. But when you do, when you fully step into that premier mindset, you will see yourself differently. You will see the world differently, and the world will feel your presence. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is where mastery speaks. And if you've been listening closely, you're ready to hear it. The stage is yours. Step into it. Resilient minds, premier results. That's what we're all about here. So don't be afraid to go towards that thing you want, even if it's hard. And keep in mind, recognition is always the first step. If you don't know something is happening, we can't do anything about it. And I know it kind of leans on the idea of how good awareness is, and we talked all episode about how awareness can go bad. Keep the balance in mind, but don't lose sight of awareness. We need to be aware of things. As always, this episode is meant to provide tools for performance, not to replace individualized therapy. If you're struggling with anxiety, burnout, or persistent stress, professional guidance is critical. At Premier Performance LLC, we work with high achievers to implement strategies like these with precision, accountability, and results. With that, I make it a point to give you guys actionable tools to find success in your life. So let me know if it's helping. I love staying connected with you all and hearing about everything that occurs, whether it be disappointments, failures, struggles, positives, proud moments, accomplishments, and everything in between. I just want to stay connected and hear how things are going for you guys and know if this stuff is helping. So make sure to let us know and stay in connection with us. We love hearing from you guys, and we'd love to hear how this episode impacts you specifically. So leave us reviews, send us messages. If you found this super helpful, make sure you share it with somebody in your life that you think may get something from this. Our goal is to spread awareness and get this in front of as many people as possible to help people be the best version of themselves. So if you have somebody in your life that you think could benefit, send it their way and let's see if we can get them started on their own path. And make sure you reach out with questions. If there's anything you have for us, whatever it is, even if you feel like it's not a great question or you're not even sure what you're asking, just reach out and let's talk about it. We'd love to stay connected and it doesn't cost you a dime. So to reach out to us, you can connect in various different ways. The first one is our email, which is tmahler@premierperformancereno.com. My last name spelled Mahler. You could text or call me directly at 775-561-0056. We have the Instagram and the TikTok with the same name for both of those, which is premier_performance_Reno. Then we have the Facebook page and the LinkedIn page with the same name for both of those, which is Premier Performance LLC. And then we have the Twitter or the X account, which is at Premier Reno LLC, followed by our website, which is www.premierperformancereno.com. So make sure to get involved. We drop content on our social media channels literally every day, and we have new podcast episodes coming out literally every week. So get involved in these communities we are building. Our ultimate goal is to connect you and help you guys networking with other high performers so you guys can help each other out and go do some amazing things in life. And on top of it, you can always reach out and connect with us to get help with whatever you are struggling with. Don't be afraid. Next week, we're going to keep it going and we're going to revisit the threat system. We're going to go back into that to really refine that topic and that idea because it's the core concept of a lot of what our work is. We reference that threat system all the time, and I think this is a great chance for us to revisit it and see where it's taking us now as we've gone through almost 50 episodes of content together. So that'll be next week. We'll see where that takes us, and we'll just keep on building from there. as we keep on adding on more blocks to what we're building. Go be the best you can be, go after the thing that scares you, and don't be afraid to push yourself. If you're struggling and you're not sure what to do, just reach out and ask. Let's have a conversation, see where it takes us. If you want, you can reach out and schedule a consultation. We can get some stuff going too. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you guys enjoy yourself, and I'll see you guys soon.